So the idea started when Anthony Freud, who was the general director here 4 or 5 years ago, saw Mariachi Vargas in this very theatre and just went, these are the most incredibly virtuosic musicians. They have a fantastic rhythm, they have a fantastic style of playing. I'd love to do a project with them, and let's see if we can interest them in doing a mariachi opera. And then it developed from there, and Lenny wrote the book and then turned that into the libretto, which is what we call the words in an opera, and on we went from there. And Pepe obviously wrote the music, and the music is just life-affirming. It's wonderful, joyous music. Even when it's sad, it's still uplifting. So I think that's one of the things that we've learned about Cruzar. It's now done performances here in San Diego, in Paris, in Paris and France, and it speaks to everyone. It is a universal story about where is home, where do you as an individual decide is your home? Is it where you live, or is it where you were born? Is it where your family is, etc. etc. So it absolutely is a universal piece. I'm a white guy from England, and it speaks to me on many levels. So
you're living here in the States now, so you know what it's like.
Absolutely, yeah.
In this place. How long have you been here?
6 years. 6 years.
It's still a little fresh.
It's still a little fresh, yeah. I mean, I have a young family. You uproot your entire family. You leave all your in-laws behind. Some by choice, some by just the detail of moving 5,000 miles. But you're right. It's where do I consider home? Houston is definitely my home now, but all my relatives don't live here. So it speaks to people on a different level. And I think one of the things that's wonderful about Houston is there aren't actually that many Houstonians who live here. It's a very, it's a melting pot city. It's a fantastic cultural melting pot of a city, and people come here for periods of time and then go some other place. And it's interesting how many come back to Houston when they get free choice. But there's so much business here, so much oil, so much energy sector of work, medical center. A lot of people come here for a period of time, and then move away. A lot of the people who work for Houston Grand Opera are not first-generation Houstonians, but when you come here and you see what the southern charm, southern kindness of people, what a great city Houston is to live in. At that point, it becomes very difficult to think about going anywhere else. It's one of only four cities in the US that has a full-time opera company, ballet company, symphony, and repertory theater. And people in Texas don't get that. People in Houston are surprised at how much arts there is here and how much culture there is here. And you're absolutely right. It's very much a cultural center for the US. And people do think they have to go to other places to try and get that culture, and that's not true. That's really not true. I've been working in opera for 30 years. I worked out when I was 27 years old, I'd done over 1,000 performances of opera. Attended mainly working, but I'd attended over 1,000. So I'm guessing it's in the 2,000 to 3,000 at least.
Where does this one stand for you?
This has a real special place in my heart. I was here at the beginning of this. I made the tour to Paris happen. Was in Paris with it. Went to San Diego last weekend. There are very few operas that I've held this kind of connection with, both in subject matter, but also just in terms of the music. So this is right up there for me. This is really, truly right up there for me. We did the first performance here. The Latino market buy very late. We've discovered that. And so on the day of the first performance, which was a concert performance, we ended up putting 400 chairs extra into the auditorium and completely sold them out. And at that point, this was the first time we'd really heard the piece run through from beginning to end as well. We then did performances in the community, which were sold out. The real kicker for me was when we went to the Châtelet in Paris. The first night audience there was sold out, and they gave it an 8-minute standing ovation. And this is a French-speaking country, a Spanish and English language piece, and the connection that it made with people was such that they instantaneously, at the end of the show, stood up and applauded. And in Europe, there's a habit for stamping when you're approving of something, and they started stamping. And this is a 19th century building. I was worried for the building at times, and Vargas were fantastic. They walked down stage and were blowing kisses to people because that's their audience. This French audience had never seen that before, but they responded to that as well. So after 8 minutes you go, okay, so this piece really does speak to everybody. And that was repeated at every performance. Like, again, once you start to see the quality of musicianship, the quality of singing, the quality of their playing, at that point you get just sucked into it. I mean, it takes you one number. The first number is a fantastic upbeat number anyway, but you get sucked into that, and wow, off you go. It's a 70-minute journey of handbrake off, and you get to the end, and it's you get to walk out 70 minutes later just feeling better about things. The most bizarre conversation I had on stage at the end of one of the performances in Paris, this lady came up to me and she said, "I have to tell you, this is the most moving piece of theatre I've ever seen. This is the story for everyone. I want to bring it to the Lebanon." So I'm standing in Paris, talking about a Spanish-English piece, and she wants to bring it to the Lebanon. And I mean, you just have to go with it. And you go, okay. So, and we started talking figures, and that for whatever reason didn't happen. That particular idea, but this piece has that reaction from people. People want it to be seen by everybody. I had 2 people in San Diego on last Saturday who came up to me and said, "This has to do a national tour." Okay, write me a check. We'll do a national tour. That's no problem. We'd love to do a national tour. Yeah, exactly. I'll take plastic as well. We would love to get this show to Mexico because it's a piece that would speak to them so directly, and so they already have a fantastic relationship with Vargas as performers. The combination of Vargas as performers and the operatic voice, I think it just takes it to a different level, and I think that they would really enjoy that. They would come for Vargas, but they would leave going, "Oh, so that's what opera music theatre can be about, when it has a story to it, it has a narrative story running through, when you have a production that tells a story." Cruzar is still on the beginning of a long journey, I believe, and we'll see where that ends up. It could end up in some very, very strange places yet, I think. The title just became actually so Lenny started to write the libretto, and it became one of the songs in the show, and he just felt it was absolutely the right title for the show, because the show has that overarching thing of the migration of the butterflies from back every year, and it seemed like the perfect title for the show, and it translated well, and so that's how we ended up with that. Titles of shows are very tricky to do, because you have to be punchy, you have to invite people in without excluding them. It's a tricky thing to do, but I think it really does have the more I get to know the piece and the more times I see the piece, it's a very, very good title for the show, because it has a hint of what is that about, and it doesn't tell you what it's about, and that's great, because again, sometimes the death of Klinghoffer, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be the death of this guy called Klinghoffer. The marriage of Figaro, he's going to get married, and he's called Figaro. I think that the nature of the piece is that it touches any number of people, and the more we take it around, the more that becomes clear. I think it's a fantastic piece to come to, and we're thrilled to have Mariachi Vargas back in Houston on stage with Houston Grand Opera, so that's all good.